All right, Sons of the Shoe is back, and we'll finish our conversation about the ESPN's FPI list of teams that have the best chance to go undefeated. And Notre Dame, as I mentioned, is at the top of the list. 15.8%, just 1 percentage point. 15.7 is where Oregon was, ahead of Oregon. And so I pulled up all the schedule of these teams near the top of the list here. We didn't get a chance to talk about Georgia. It's fine. We know Georgia's going to be good. Returning the quarterback is a big thing. Carson Beck leading the way. Like, we know Georgia's going to be good, so I'm less worried about it. But, okay, you tell me if I'm crazy. And I know this isn't a Notre Dame podcast, but I had to hit on this because as we're talking about this, I went and looked up Notre Dame's schedule. And if they don't go undefeated with this schedule, maybe not undefeated. If they lose more than one game with this schedule, I wouldn't be surprised if Notre Dame fans are trying to run Marcus Freeman out of town. Okay. Texas A&M. Listen, that's tough. That's tough. But listen, if you're a good team, nationally ranked team, you're expecting to have a big season, all these different things. If you're a good team, you should be competitive in that game. Now, we know Notre Dame has always struggled with the SEC, so we'll see. But maybe that's the one you lose. And it's also week 1. It could be fluky, all these different things. Okay, fine. That's the one you lose. That's the one you lose. But you start the season against Texas A&M. From there, absolute cakewalk. Northern Illinois, September 7th. That one is at home. By the way, the Texas A&M game is in College Station, so that makes it a little bit tougher. Purdue, week 3, or I guess we're talking about week 4 because it's week 3 because week 0 is before that. Week 0, yeah, I forgot. College football does it differently than the NFL. We always call it week 0. But you get Purdue. You got Miami of Ohio, September 21st. By the way, Purdue is at Purdue. Then you're at home at Notre Dame Stadium against Miami of Ohio. Louisville, who, okay, they were good last year. Came close to winning the ACC, but I'm not buying that Louisville's going to be as good this year. I think they're going to take a step back. Stanford, no. Georgia Tech, no. Navy, probably not. Even though sometimes when you play that triple option stuff, it can be fluky, but I trust Notre Dame to win that game. And then you round it out, Florida State. Okay, Florida State is another tough game, assuming that they're still going to be a powerhouse program next year and be a good team. So that's maybe the other one that you have a chance to lose. But if you're a good Notre Dame team, by the way, they finished with Virginia November 16th, and then Army West Point is November 23rd. It's the Shamrock Series. They're playing that game in the Bronx, so a neutral site game. And then you get USC November 30th to finish things off, which I think USC is on the backslide this year. I think they're gonna not be that good. So okay, so you have 2 to 3. I mean, USC could always be competitive, but you have like 2 to 3 games. Texas A&M and Florida State are the big ones that you're the most worried about if you're Notre Dame, right? Like those are the two as a Notre Dame fan where you're like, yeah, we could lose those two. But if you're supposed to be a good Notre Dame team and strength of schedule is a thing, and listen, Notre Dame's probably, if they go undefeated, they're getting in anyway because they're neutral, they're independent, and they don't have to worry about these conferences and all these different things. But like their margin for error is already 0. And so if they're going to prove that they belong in the playoff as an independent, you shouldn't really lose. You got to win one of those big games, either Texas A&M or Florida State. You got to win one to sort of prove to people that you even belong. But if you lose more than one game with that schedule, I understand why they're at the top of this FPI list, because I mean that's as soft landing of a schedule as you can get. So yeah, if they lose more than a game next year, it's a problem for Notre Dame. All right. Future Big Ten team, by the way. I'm predicting that. I've been predicting that, but I think at some point it'll happen. We'll see. All right, to get us out of here, guys. I know there was a lot that was hot and heavy last week with just this settlement in court between the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences, and these antitrust suits that were filed against them as they try to sort of save face here. And that's like, don't get it twisted. This is all this was. The details of it, I'm sure some of you, maybe not all of you, have read through it, but they settled these 3 antitrust suits that were being filed against them. Led to a $2.7 billion in back damages that are going to be paid back to the schools, and a new revenue sharing model that comes with the settlement from the House versus the NCAA. Each school will now have a budget of upwards of $20 million that they can pay out through a revenue sharing model that is yet to be determined. There's some complications with that, which I'll get to here in a second. But I want to make it clear again, like, this move was to try and save face by the NCAA and those in charge of the big conferences, because they keep losing in court. Every time they go to court, there's just more and more pushback and more like free market system that gets draped into all the NCAA jurisdiction and jargon that they're trying to throw at you every year with the, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, and we're going to limit the money that you make. When really the NCAA, as we know, is just bankrolled by the NCAA tournament TV contract anyway. So now that the players want to cut the money, like, they're recognizing here, we need to adapt or die. They absolutely need to adapt, or, I mean, guys, frankly, like, they're going to get left in the dust if they don't do something to try to sort of, I guess, mold into the or roll into the modern age that is college football and college sports. And so Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, is recognizing that, and he's taking steps to try to at least kind of ease the pain here. And so this settlement, it keeps them and the big conferences, like, they keep losing in court. They keep going to court and saying, like, okay, we're going to fight. We're going to push back on this. We want amateurism. We want amateurism. We want amateurism. And every step of the way, they're finding no friends in our judicial system. And so the options were either keep getting sued and lose money in court and go bankrupt and have to basically start over, or stop the bleeding and settle this and sort of come up with something that works for everybody. And, you know, we can all be kumbaya, at least for now. And that's the key component here, is for now, because as long as there's money coming in, as long as major college sports, especially football and basketball, are locked into these massive TV deals that are just bringing in billions to college sports, the individual schools, the individual programs, and just in general. And as long as those sports are revenue generating, are kicking in a lot of money for the entire athletic departments, like, as long as that's a thing, the players are gonna continue to ask for more. So the players are just gonna, like, this is a Band-Aid to quiet things for now, but it won't be the end. I'm telling you, like, they're setting this up. They're saying, like, okay, 20 million, we'll disperse it amongst the team. They're figuring all that out here in the coming months, and this is likely to take effect, I believe, in 2025 is what they said. And so, great, that's good that they're doing this, but I'm telling you, like, the money's just going to keep going up. There's going to be more money sort of flowing through these schools and programs that have football and basketball especially. And so the players are going to always want more. So it's a Band-Aid for now. It stops the bleeding, but it's not the end of the line in terms of the NCAA having to push back on things and trying to temper how much they pay players. It's going to keep going until probably that organization just straight up folds, because and their hope is that this stops them from getting sued, like I said. So they're hoping this slows all that down, makes tempers the problem for now, and it can maybe die down for a little bit. But I don't think it's the end. The other big thing here is the Title IX stuff. So how that money gets distributed amongst the women's programs, the men's programs, a football team that has 130 guys on it versus a basketball team that has 15, or a women's basketball team that has that's going to be and I guess college teams have a few more players than NBA teams. I was going off the NBA number there, but regardless, like, it's that stuff still has to get sorted out, and they're figuring all that out, because if the money is just being fed directly from the schools themselves to the athletes, they do have to stay within compliance of Title IX. So I know I just said a lot. I know I was trying to kind of walk you through this maze of what happened and what it means and all these different things. But the biggest thing it means is that amateurism is gone. There's NIL now, and the schools now will have the ability to pay their athletes. It's just a matter of, like, who gets the biggest cuts, how much each athlete gets, how much each program gets, all these different things. But amateurism is gone. And I think this is obviously an ongoing process. It's not the end of it. But what I think is interesting about this from the Ohio State lens is that, first of all, we saw what Ohio State did this offseason after Michigan. I mean, it was, the Quinshon Judkins signing minutes after Michigan won the title, right? And we heard Tyvis Powell talk about this on the last episode. If you missed that, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, Sons of the Shoe. You can go back and listen to it because it was a great conversation with Tyvis, and he shined some light on how the collectives work and how this all kind of comes together. And he flat out said, like, hey, the school made a push. They said, listen, we want to emphasize the NIL stuff more. We want to have more funding here. We want to do more. And there's certain dollar amounts set to certain players at certain positions and, certain starred recruits that they're willing to kind of give out to guys and spend to bring them in. And then the collective is in charge of like working through the contract details and all this different stuff of what the player, the client must do. Right. But Ohio State made a point in getting funding for this type of stuff and pushing people to donate to the collectives so that the money is there to build this juggernaut program and this juggernaut roster that they now have coming into 2024. Great. Okay. There's another part of this though. And I know that there was some, I don't know what the right word is. People that weren't necessarily like all on board with the Ross Bjork hire. The thing he was most known for was giving a contract extension to Jimbo Fisher, and then that didn't work out. And people are wondering, like, okay, is this guy really gonna make the right decisions for the state of the athletic department? But here's the thing: what we do know about Ross Bjork is that every stop he's been at, he's been praised as like this great fundraiser, brings in money for the programs, all these different things. And if that's what you brought him in for, I think Ohio State, again, is well positioned to be at the forefront of this. And we've talked about this a little bit through the offseason with the NIL stuff specifically, but now it's both NIL and this new revenue sharing model where schools are potentially going to be able to pay players directly. Like if you brought him in for that purpose, and that's largely what you bring in an athletic director for anyway. But if your main goal here was like, let's get a guy in here who's going to help us raise money and be at the forefront of this new age of college sports where the finances matter, the NIL matters, staying on top of this stuff really, really matters. I think maybe this hire ends up being a good thing for Ohio State from that lens specifically. Maybe down the line, Ross Bjork makes some decisions that are questionable with the program or the department or a certain program, and people are questioning it, and they don't necessarily like the way he does things, and he gets pushed out of here eventually. I mean, it's rare these days that ADs, that coaches like stick around as long as Gene Smith was here for a while. Like I think we get further and further from that being the thing where you just have these lifers in certain roles, especially at these big schools, especially with how the evolution of college sports and college football specifically. But given the emphasis Ohio State put on the NIL stuff and the fundraising for the NIL stuff, given that Ross Bjork has this reputation of being sort of this savvy fundraiser, which is what you're looking for from somebody in that role. And it was kind of a weird hire. They could have gone with one of Gene Smith's disciples or somebody that worked under him, and they didn't because they wanted somebody specifically who was going to be able to do that for their programs, for their department, all these different things. I think that shouldn't be understated and that shouldn't be just ignored. So I think, again, and it's all going to have to bear itself out. We're going to have to see. But it feels like Ohio State has positioned themselves in a good spot moving forward with both Ross Bjork and the way that they're basically handling the NIL stuff and making that a point of emphasis for the way that they're going to build their college football team and bring in recruits and sign them. And so I like, again, where Ohio State is at. Nick Saban retires, and it kind of is the signal of this old age of college football. Okay, who's going to take the reins and sort of be at the forefront of this new era? I think Ohio State has signaled to you this offseason that they're trying to do that. And so with these changes that are also coming now with the revenue sharing model and all this, I think they're right where they need to be to sort of navigating those waters with people that are going to help hopefully bring cash flow into the programs, and they'll be off and running football most notably. So I don't know. That was my read on it. It feels like another sort of, head nod to Ohio State. Like, okay, I like where you're at. I like where you're at in this thing, and I like what you did in this last year. Yes, we know. Football-wise, you lose to Michigan. You don't win a national championship. They do. You're upset about that, and there's conversations to be had about Ryan Day's future down the line here in the next season and all that. But in terms of the program seriously trying to get out in front of things with the way college football is evolving, I think they've done a good job of that, and hopefully it pays off with a national championship coming up this upcoming season. All right, guys, appreciate you jumping on in with me for the latest episode of Sons of the Shoe. Before we get out of here, I will once again remind you, you can find Sons of the Shoe wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, which we like to push here, being an Odyssey affiliate station at 92 to the Fan, and of course, Apple Podcasts. Definitely follow, subscribe at Apple Podcasts if you can. Get those notifications turned on so you know every time we drop a new episode, and you can tune in and see what we have to say about your Ohio State Buckeyes. You can also jump in and follow along at the 92 to the Fan YouTube channel. You can comment there. Let me know your thoughts about the show. If I'm off my rocker with some of this stuff, great. I'll push back on it with you in the comment section. You can also hit me up on X at Spencito_. Appreciate you guys jumping on in. Until next time, and hopefully next time includes Nick Wilson, my partner in crime. But until then, go Bucks.